Saturday the 19th of October 2024, 3:30 in the morning. I am doing a video while the memory is fresh in my mind, and it's ready for, I hope it's ready for January 2024, New Year. It's 2 in the morning, actually, in fact. And I'm going to do this like audiobook. And it's everything to do in the contents of my first outing as a disabled person that is very special. Because I hadn't been out for a year. It's my first time. I'm going to go back in reverse. So from the moment I have woken up from a nightmare, and then in the context of the beginning, which is the end, and then the end is the beginning, which is weird as I'm going backwards. And then I'm going to do like a testimony in sections or segments. After doing the audiobook, I'm hoping to use my typewriter when I buy the ribbon. Easily follow the segments and sections at the end of the video. So help me God. As I begin from the very beginning, before the ability I have to be a warrior, a prayer warrior, itself is not enough to pray. Being made to put things in practice. And therefore, believing that there is a God and that God is with me and made everything around me, the humans, the animals, the plants, the trees, the sky, and everything in this world. From the beginning of time, it was perfect, and nothing could ever go wrong. The way God had planned, every way worked out through his perfect love that was never perverse. And this is how I remember the world in God's hands versus a bad angel making the world system through sin and rebellion against the good angel. And God, the creator, the good angel, had sent Christ for every nation, that through him we don't give up. We have a savior. And this motivates me. This is marvelous, magnificent. So I have a collection of stories in this audible book of how I just, from the moment I woke up, at the end of the day, in a lot of chronic physical pain, to the moment of opening my eyes and getting out several times for pain relief and everything else. My entire spine felt as if it was stretching. It was stretching, and it became huge. That some type, as if it was elongated. It became long, or became very wide. And when I touched the bulging disc in my spine, for like a hill or a mountain that could not be moved. And all I could do was gently massage it. I do need a new water bottle, as I've placed the old bottle somewhere and it's out of reach, so I need a spare water bottle as soon as I can, urgently, to relieve the pain, as the previous location of my sleeping quarters and my bed was next to a radiator. As I lay on my bed, I could attach my back on the radiator. And this has been my main pain relief, and the best pain relief, even better than paracetamol or any other medicine. So for the first time in 10 years, I am not using the radiator. And it's amazing to me what I have, with God's help, accomplished in my determination to do a normal thing. Walking is normal. Sitting is normal. Most people take this for granted. And so the disability world is crippled and collapsed is a very different world, because you have to let everything go. Let go, and I gave it to God. I did not give it to the enemy. An enemy wanted to take advantage. Because I had some professional cleaners come and clean, get rid of all the rubbish, and they didn't have the time or the opportunity to clean the light bulb chandelier, where the flies came in. Not mainly from my bins, because I triple my bin bags, tie up in knots, and sometimes use 4 bin bags, and they go inside the wheelie bin. If they're not always in the wheelie bin, either way, the flies coming from my bin, I have always managed to capture and stop. However, the flies that came from my window being opened in the summer, I could never stop, because I didn't have the energy or the strength, being fragile. I'm not like an old, frail woman. I'm a fragile young woman. And so, to add insult to my injury, many on the internet, social media, and many in real life had insulted me, called me an old woman. No, I'm not. I'm a young woman. And I had a compliment from my taxi driver. He thought I was much younger than almost 50s. And so God has blessed me with giving me added extra youth-looking years to my life. And the grey hairs that I have in my natural hair is very little grey hairs. It can go. It can come. It can go. Sometimes one year I have more grey hairs, and the next year I have less grey hairs. Similar to a panda bear. No one thought that under the white fur of a panda, not pandas, polar bear, underneath the white hairs, that I was told that polar bears have dark hairs underneath white hairs, and it's fascinating. and beautiful animal. I never felt beautiful. It is God and the good angels that made me feel beautiful, and my daughter when she was with me. She's not with me anymore. Her childhood had to end abruptly and be cut short because of the intervention of strangers and intervention of formal associates that would believe they know better for my daughter's education, they know better for my daughter's growth and development, they know better for my daughter's financial job opportunities. And it's very sad that her childhood was cut short at age 9 through Children's Social Services saying, I don't have a family. My daughter doesn't have a dad who died when she was 7 years old. And this was the main reason, because I don't have a family that could take over. So my ex-mother-in-law and ex-father-in-law told my mother-in-law to leave us alone, but he also died in the same year that they took my daughter away from me. I got on very well with my father-in-law. I never got on very well with my mother-in-law, who were ex. And so this is the story of how my daughter doesn't live with me anymore. After 10 years of living with me. And I used to miss her very much. And it hurt very much being reminded in the same accommodation, same property, apartment, every day. She used to be here. Her clothes and some of her shoes are still here. I have never been hoarding, but it was an everyday life that suddenly stopped. And my injuries were ignored at the court case. It was everything for making my professional bullies happy, or the authorities happy. It was everything to protect their integrity, which was actually based on a lie and one-sided judgment. It never included me. And I never told my daughter that it was her that injured my spine. Carrying her bicycle, moving furniture to her first new home, and it was my third home. So the first part of my life, from age 18 to late 20s, I was in a bedsit outside of London, which was horrible, in the middle of nowhere, in some type of prison cell where actual prisoners were released in the building block of flats. And my foster mother, who is Catholic, named Anna, or my cousin Tina, none of my relatives cared what had happened to me from age 18. And it's awful how narcissists are, or narrow-minded individuals are, or supremacists are, superiors are. It is appalling that no one actually cared about me. They only wanted to be seen in my life by others or owners as a false hero, that they would only do something for me by their own terms and conditions so that they could have their own good books. And it was partial, it was one-sided. Everything about my cousin Tina, who wants to control all my other cousins in Cambridge and how they have their conduct towards me, if it's professional or personal. And she's messing things about in the sense that she always wants to flip things around. She's always the one who's in control over my auntie and uncle. And this has everything to do with finances. It's not for the love of peace, it's for the love of money or reputation. So it's fame or fortune, which is a false light, which is everything to do with narcissists and abusers. That's what I've learned. That's my lesson regarding my background and those around me. So I'm doing a vivid description of what it is like from my side, from my perspective, how to survive against all odds, a lone survivor, to hopefully find some friends to come in the future when they come across this video. From the perspective through God being my witness and I being a witness to God in the spirit of truth. We worship God in spirit and in truth. This is a different opposite freedom from fame and fortune, of which is the bad guy, the bad angels, and their influence on humans, compared to the good guys who have the influence and guidance and guard like a lion taking care of the lambs. Oh. And so, returning to the subject of my pain, of what it was like to have that from the beginning, which is the end. As I woke up again, kept getting up, couldn't sleep, as I don't have this outing every day. It's only happens once in a lifetime or once a year. I'm housebound or bedridden. And I had to sit down in the taxi for about 40 minutes or 30 minutes, going and coming back to a pet shop. And I paid almost £100, which is a lot of money, prepaid the taxi in advance the day before for my journey to the pet shop, to go and to come back almost. So going and returning almost £100. I'm just going to give estimate price. I'm not going to give the exact price for privacy and confidentiality purposes. I round up the figure of the total. And so I was sitting there. The driver was friendly, reasonable, wise. He said he originates from Pakistan. We were in a black Mercedes. And I felt safe with him because he was gentle and patient and there was no disguise. Whereas tyrants or bullies can come across as a protector, as a hero, but is actually a predator. Is actually someone who would want to harm you, not look out for your best interest. So that was my day. That was started from 8 in the morning, and then it's finished. I arrived home at 3 in the afternoon, approximately. In the memory of that, as I had just woken up and down, I had to insist on drinking, and obviously drinking water made me go to the toilet, and that would wake me up. But what woke me up more than the business of toilet was the fact that I had a chronic pain in my spine. And to describe what that feels like, the bulging disc and the sciatica nerve damage, it felt very hot to touch. It was like a little mountain or mountain hill on my back. Numbing feeling all the way down my legs. Oh God, everything was like loss of saddle sensation. But it very sharp pain, and the only relief I had was to sit on the lupan with a hole in the middle, or a chair and it felt as if I had to walk sideways. My back became bent. How would I describe it? I know that in the past, 2 years ago, it was worse than that because my back started bending. I couldn't straighten it. I couldn't stand up straight. However, 2 years after is the other extreme of me walking sideways, a sort of bent sideways, and I couldn't stand up straight. I was bent. I was bent sideways. There's a lot of sharp pain going through my back. Oh, like bone crunching. Oh my God. And so I struggled standing up straight, and all of this as a result of my day's events. I don't normally dream. I'm not normally a dreamer. And God knows all the battles I've been going through from now backdated to 2 years. Every single battle, and how God has helped me to win. Even though the enemy may seem tell everybody else that I'm a loser, it's a lie. I'm a winner. So don't listen to my enemies. I survive all odds, especially pain every day in my back that I go through, and all the problems. It gets too much for someone that's disabled and surviving as a lone survivor. So, I will carry on talking about waking up from, which is the beginning, which is the end, a nightmare, which is not more painful. It's less painful compared to the pain in my back. And walking what felt like on eggshells or glass, broken glass, which was actually very sharp in my feet. I had to put Vaseline on my feet. And my feet are in pain too, because the floor needs to be properly hoovered and my hoover is not working properly. I need to buy a better quality hoover as my priority in the future. I thought to myself, on the shopping list in the future is one of my priorities. God, so help me God, because I have pets at home, and when their pellets drop on the floor, it feels like I'm stepping on glass, or it is literal broken glass that hasn't been properly. The floors are wooden floors. They need to be properly mopped and hoovered, because when the cleaners were here, they concentrated on the kitchen and bathroom. They didn't clean the chandeliers from the horrible flies that came from the window, which I introduced in this video. They still my plan for the future to probably use the same cleaners to come back. And I announcing that they are a teamwork that worked out well. You can never judge appearances. You can never judge a book by its cover. You have to really get to know people. How reliable they are, how trustworthy are they using kindness, gentleness, patience and virtues for selling something, or are they genuine? So that's the question I always ask when it comes to team workers and any professional conduct or personal conduct. So returning to the subject of me waking up from a nightmare, and this is not going to be the best audiobook because it's not filtered, it's not given to my audience in perfect editing, it's given in perfect love. So I don't, like I say, normally dream. It's very rare that I do dream, and I had a horrible dream, a nightmare, that I had one boob, didn't have two boobs. I was touching somebody with my indexed finger, poking that individual, to see if that individual could stop being a zombie and discriminating against my physical flesh, my body. That I'm more than a boob, I'm more than a physical body, I have a spiritual body. But I didn't want to be with that person in real life. However, in my dream, I wanted to be with that person. In the sense that God can always capture or capsulate in a capsule, God being my witness. God can always find the best in the worst situation. God can always find a tiny little bit of faith as small as a mustard seed that can grow to enable my healing and help not only me but the person involved in the dream. And then God gave me an amazing miracle in my mind. Before the miracle, no, the miracle was before the nightmare, while I was awake, that made me acknowledge that this person who has harmed me so much 2 years ago, individual, could have been someone that was used by evil most of the times of that individual's life, who is an individual that's getting married at a very old age. This individual is nearly 80 years old. And I think that's a lifesaver for me, who was a false friend, but God can do a miracle to make that individual a true friend and be a lifesaver to me through this tiny bit of seed of faith or love, that God can turn my enemy into a friend in making the corrupt government and the non-corrupt government acknowledge that it's never too late. People should not be judged according to the skin color or their accomplishments, what they obsess and possess, and what they have accomplished, such as marriage and a new life. You cannot judge someone by their age or by the appearance. And that was my life lesson. And even though it seemed like a nightmare, it was actually everything to do with my miracle from God. I having one boob, one breast, and that my enemy had liked me because I gave that enemy a new beginning. Because whatever the enemy wanted, I was not going to give. And it became an enemy because it was forcing me to give it what it wanted. That's why it became an enemy. And I refused to give it. I have my freedom. I have my liberty. I have my human civil right from God to say no. You can't live with me. No, I can't marry you. No, you can't touch me inappropriately and be a sexual molester. And so that was the dream, but it was so weird. It was as if we were in total harmony and total agreement. Nothing to do with me or to do with him as an individual who molested me 2 years ago. It was everything to do with God's will and what God wanted. In conclusion, that God's grace and glory came and touched my enemy and me in acknowledging what God wanted. And that was perfect harmony, acceptance, and being raised from the dead. And I touched him with my index finger, this living dead zombie. But the dream suddenly ended. He did not stop being a zombie. He did not come to life But he did accept and appreciate my touch, to say only God can give us life. When I was touching his shoulder, his chest or his shoulder, and the dream felt so real, as if it was real, as if it wasn't a dream. And I couldn't understand why the dream that felt emotionally harmonious and beautiful, full of acceptance, no discrimination, in my dream felt lovely, but when I woke up it felt horrible and strange, weird. I don't want to be a one boob. I don't want to be cut to pieces because of him. And so because of this individual, that's what he wanted as an enemy. That was how he saw me. And God turned that around in through an emotion that felt harmonious. That his decision to accept the fact that I had said no, that he felt rejected. However, not for long, because he's getting remarried and he has a new girlfriend. And so he can have a new life while I still have an old life. And I said, how is that a miracle, God? How is that a miracle when it's a nightmare in real life? In real life, how can my dream affect reality? And then God showed me that through his new life, and that his age is that much older, he could die in 5 years, he had to acknowledge that there is a God of grace and glory and mercy. And so the government also acknowledged that. Therefore, some of the enemies can become friends, to say if it's not too late for him to find true love and support at age 80, it won't be too late for me to grow older, and for the first time in my life, find family and friends. If it's not too late for him, why should it be too late for me? Why should my life be cut short? I know I have a family in heaven, and I will be going home, so I'm happy if I die or live. But the point is, why do I have to suffer and go through hell too much and have the devil take away things too much from me? So the lesson had been learned that God helped me to not be afraid of the enemy and to have a feeling of respect and fear God, and God take away my fear of human beings. And that's how, with God's help and healing, it had turned around the horrible experience of being sexually molested and groped and overpowered, with him being stronger than me, taller than me, not fatter than me. So Paul was fat, who was my brother in the devil, and Roger is my granddad in the devil, adopted. And it's making the government, corrupt or non-government, realize that age has nothing to do with it. It's everything to do with God being in control of our opportunity, of our new beginnings, and of our battles that we go through. God is in control of my life. And this is what I've made the government acknowledge through these experiences shared on Facebook and on YouTube. Long ago, which was things that I had done on Facebook to bring the light in the darkness, similar to the moon and the stars in the night, or between the land and the sea, for my relatives, mainly my parents, my mum and dad, who I have met 4 times in 45 years. And I was pleased to ask them to ask God for a pardon. Oh, they did acknowledge that they were very bad. They never apologized to me. I wasn't expecting an apology, but I was getting myself ready to ask if my mum would change and ask if she would stop wanting to be a bully and demand that she is my leader and that I should always follow her. And I don't want her to always follow me. And it's not about domination and control. It's about care and being cool and not being creepy, and asking God to call my mum for repentance, and asking my dad for God to call him in repentance, because they, to me, are the same as murderers and also adulterers and literal murderers, and they have done a lot of evil things. And they acknowledging that they've done bad things is not enough. They have to ask God to help them to have a conscience to repent, and ask God to help them to reform and change. Only God can do that, can give a human being a conscience. And even if it means them going through hell, with God disciplining them in real life while their heart is beating in their chests, now and after life, in a death situation in their spiritual body, we all have two bodies. After their heart has stopped beating in their chests and they're in the afterlife, underworld, will they go? Even then they would have some leeway, as God is the God of the living, not of the dead. However, God will judge the living and the dead, and God is more clever, more crafty, and is also stretching out God's pricked hands through Christ to see if God can save souls in hell so that heaven is more popular. From the moment that we die, either in a spiritual body and or physical body, or both. So dying a spiritual body is depression in medical terms. Dying a physical body is when your heart stops beating and you are then confirmed dead, ceased to exist, deceased. And so in the beginning of time, looking at the first ancestors, the first humans as in Adam and Eve, they didn't know what death was until they rebelled and agreed with the bad angel, and they couldn't come back to the perfect creation. They had received perfect love, but they were constantly tired and, worst of all, constantly sick, and had dreadful witness to first murder, who was Cain and Abel, because of being a rival. Two brothers felt one was different from the other in a negative sense, not different in a positive sense. And it was everything to do with hatred and tricking you through Cain, which I strongly believe is the personality disorder north-south cat-dog in the DNA of the Cain and Adam as the bad guy, or the false good guy, which is everything to do with being in the party of the bad rebel angel, compared to the party of God's good angel, and no one's good, only God makes us good, with God's help and assistance through the good angels. Pleased to know that I believe it's probably everything to do with Eve's DNA and Abel's DNA, who are supposed to be the good guys, and humble sinners in the DNA, connecting to the personality disorder or mental sickness, which is the south-north or dog-cat type. However, ironically, God also shows me the two sinners between the false good guy and the bad guy, and the humble sinners, that what is worse? It is worse to know the Holy Spirit and reject the Holy Spirit. That's the same as Judas the Iscariot, the dog cat, the goat sheep, who committed suicide for his betrayal and destroying Jesus Christ, compared to the bad guy or the false good guy, is the same as Peter, who wanted to steal the ministry of Jesus. So the cat-dog type are the wolves, and the dog-cat types are the lions, when it comes to the party of the devil, the rebel, the bad angels. So the humble sinners are actually worse, the same as Judas the Iscariot, but then these evil spirits can swap, depending on how much they are willing to do God's will, as God being as a potter who shapes the clay pot in whatever shape God wants. Likewise, in our personalities, take this a little, or as a cook, have this a little bit over here, this little bit over there, sprinkle here, sprinkle there. So God ultimately decides the shape by your free will, and you being humbled enough, even to the point of being a martyr or death, life and death situation. When things get so bad Would you still make heaven more popular than hell? Would you still be loyal to God in a crisis? Would you still trust and obey God's voice and all the notices? Notice God more than the devil. From all the bad noise pollution, and see that God is the center and the core in your life. What God is doing, the good angel, not what the devil's doing, because everything the devil is doing has already been done. God cried on the cross, "You devil, you're finished." There's nothing that you're doing in the future that I don't already know. And the battle between good and evil is already done and down into the torrents, or any other rainy day, or during the time when Noah tried to escape from the floods of when all the land mass was together in the Gangia, and all the animals could easily get onto the boat that God had designed and had sent instructions through this project for Noah and only 8 human beings to survive. So we looked at the first couple and their family being ruined as a result of rebellious, stubborn sin and being different in a negative sense, and how it caused murder. And then we looked at the 8 survivors, the lone survivors, when it comes to genocide, how all the human race was wiped out except for the 8 survivors. So we looked at the couple and their children, their family being ruined, and we're looking at the 8 lone survivors, how the human race is being ruined and rubbished. And as if you're flushed down the toilet and you no longer exist in a giant toilet in this global flood. As it was from the beginning, so it shall be in the end. And that's what it says. God will start from the beginning, as Stone Age time. And we'll be at the very beginning. All the new technology and all the advanced things that we have will suddenly disappear, because what we're building is similar to the Tower of Babel, which is the 3rd concentration camp. God is not a tyrant, but God is looking at the evil that we do, which is going to confine us even more into a corner like a rat as a human race for not being humbled. So what happened to Cain for not being humbled? What happened to the humans that were not humbled in the surrounding Noah's flood? And what happened to the humans who refused to be humbled surrounding the Tower of Babel? Those 3 things, main things to focus on: the cycle, the soul cycle, and the cycle of events of the human race not being humbled. And the consequences for that is that God divided our languages and said they're becoming too clever. And God will put an end to them for that, because they refused to be humbled. And they were separated in different nations with different languages and different skills and different habitats through the natural ecosystems and sunlight and skin colors and all this, affected by the sunlight. And so many, and the majority of human beings became similar to the human animal, because their existence was the sunlight and the moon and the stars and the times and the seasons, instead of their reason for existence is the Creator God, who is even brighter than the sun, the moon, and all these seasons, who ultimately controls these things as the Creator. So that focus has shifted from the creator to the creature. And then so it infused into their system and their soul as a condemned cursed. So they're lower than they're a low life, even lower than the animals, lower than the insects, lower than the plants, because it wasn't enough for them to repent. They had to rely on a dove for good luck and for bad luck, or a bird, to make them happy. I don't rely on my pets to make me happy, yes, they do motivate me to get up, clean up after them. Even if I am in a lot of pain, I rest, and then I wake up and it gives me something to do so that I don't go in the day without having any accomplishments, being unemployed and disabled. I've got something to do. I'm taking care of my animals. They're taking care of me. I give them feedback. They give me feedback. I give them food, give them water. I talk to them. They talk to me. Sometimes I understand them. Sometimes I don't understand them. They're a different species. They're a different creature from human beings. They're not a human. And they're like an angel. They're also like a little baby of a child that I'm missing from not reproducing anymore, not having a family anymore. And so pets at home are very special and important to me, but not more important than God to say that they are the reason why I exist. That has never been the case. And that's what I have been accused by bad partial judges, that they accuse me of living for my daughter, that she was the reason I was living, which is totally false and demonic. That's what they do. That's what they're guilty of. And their guilt was forced on me. I was force shamed, fat shamed, all types of shame and blame they put on me for their wrongs and their misconducts and wrong attitudes, because the way they think, they expect everyone to think and behave as them nearly every day. And so this is the main cause of my injustice, and that caused me a lot of trouble and harsh reality checks, fact checks, that they're anti-single parents who are poor. They're not anti-single parents that are rich, that have a big family and support network. It is only us who have no support network that are targeted by systemic abuse, discrimination, and destruction. Going through hell over my head, under my feet, across the entire sky. Every time I step my foot outside, I am being attacked, simply for being a single lone survivor and not having a lot of family. Maybe some family here and there, but they're not genuine for God's glory and grace. They're only used by the devil. But God can also do a miracle and make me strong as a result of discovering that God can turn those who work for the devil as my enemies into my friends, and have God's fame and fortune. And in the aspect that I'm saying how different they are in a negative sense, to say one law for the richer or for the devil's work, the devil's criminals, the sex offenders, and another law for God's people who are not criminals, who are not sex offenders, who are vulnerable. We're treated with uttermost hate crime and evil, and not have those protections by the law to help us who are God's people. And the families are being scattered, and my daughter doesn't have an inheritance. She's not there's no descendants, there's no ancestors, there's no people. And that's how we're remembered. Even though I'm speaking in English, if I was to use my native language, which was Serbo-Croatian, former Yugoslavia, my mum is from Montenegro, from her father's side, mixed Serbian, and my father is Serbian with a tiny little bit of Arab in him. But they're not a great nation. They have done great evil to me. They've abandoned me and neglected me in a foreign country. I was fostered by a Catholic mother who's very distant and very much unknown to me. She's still a stranger, even though she's known me for 30 years or so. Because in her mind, in the devil, she believes in the Pandora's box. She believes that you must not share your feelings, never ever. And as soon as she arrives at my doorstep, or wherever we go to meet, both my cousins in Cambridge and my foster parent would never see things or judge based on facts or based on my perspective. It's always one-sided to their perspective. So with this introduction, I'm now going away back to the events of the day. What has happened? So again, I have been accused by the enemies surrounding me who are working for the bad rebel angel that I'm greedy and lazy and possibly cruel and violent or aggressive, and I should be ashamed and feel very sorry for being angry, assertive, that I must be bad or disobedient, have civil disobedience and must be punished. I must be wrong for my ethnic minority or my marginalized community. Or I'm shady because I'm poor. I must be a pervert, and all of these horrible things that they would say, and everything that they have said to roast me alive in hell, is the same as being betrayed by Judas Iscariot, who betrayed Jesus Christ at the table. The food was roasted, they had soup and bread, and he wanted to add insult to Jesus's grief. Jesus knew that he was in trouble with the authorities, and he surprised Jesus by dipping his bread in Jesus' soup. In other words, to add insult to injury, to say, you're not the one destroying me, I'm destroying you. And I'm going to go and give this location address to the tyrants that are going to execute you. So that was the threat from Judas Iscariot, which is the same threat on me and all of Christ's followers. The moment I have contact with all the humans, even animals, that are there to represent the bad angel. And Jesus responded, go quickly and do what you wanted to do. It is better that you were not born as you betray me, or add insult to my injury or my grief. So where was I in that point from reversing? So I'm going back in time. It's like time travel, and I'm going back in time. Sort of, was it Back to the Future? Similar. So, so what happened with my birds? I bought 2 yellow birds from this pet shop. They settled well in my old cage, which has fly stains or poop. I need to clean I'm going to use blood orange spray disinfectant, which is 100% organic, on a very soft cloth, to wipe it all off and make it as brand new. And I noticed when I saw it, it looks like rust. It's not rust. It's not diseased. It's pesky poo flies or rubbish flies that had landed on my bird cage that hasn't been used for about 8 or 9 years. So I've cleaned it all, not done yet, with a soft cloth, no scourer, no scratching, and make it look new. So it is new on the inside with all the sandpaper in it on the bottom. There's a beautiful shelf that can slide out of the cage. I don't even have to put my hand in the cage, just simply pull the little shelf out from the bottom of the cage like a tray or shelf. Tray, I would say, not shelf. And just replace the poop on the ground level on the sandpaper. As simple as that. And so they're very easy to care and maintain. And I had a fantasy, this vision of being remarried and my lover or spouse. I love marriage, but in the right context, in the right order, and with mutual agreement. So it's not arranged marriage, it's not evil, perverted marriage, it's not bribed marriage, it's not a political type of marriage. It has lots of witnesses, it has lots of time, it has a lot of time to put money aside, so there's no bad stress associated to marriage. So it depends on what type of marriage. Anyway, in my vision and fantasy, I was married, and my lover put my bird's cage to be welded by specialist who had special equipment to bend and heat up the metal, weld the metal of the cage to remove the top of the cage and add an extra long cage, so it's extra elongated, that would almost reach the ceiling, as like a bird aviary, and to make it extended into an extra long cage. And so this is my vision and fantasy. Wow, I'd like that. This is great fantasy. And yes, God, I'd like this to happen if I am going to be remarried, or but that's in the future. So this is like my family, these pets at home, and they look like lemons, like 2 little yellow lemons. Would I call him a lemon? No. 2 little yellow lemons, and I'd like to buy some more birds to go in the same cage, and maybe have an egg hatch and see an egg hatch for the first time in real life, and little budgerigars. And so my tummy was rumbling. I was hungry. I realized all my pots are not properly cleaned. I need to properly clean them, except for one clean pot I have, but it's extra thick stainless steel. No, I decided to just use foil, and it was the pie of creamy chicken pie, delicious and succulent, and all the posh words I could think of in foil. Just put it on there, on my oven cooker electrical hob, and it's so great. It's so delicious, and it's satisfying, filling. And yes, and I'm going to finish that with my spinach, and then any remainder of my spinach I will cook with curly kale with the soup for dinner. So nothing is wasted. And then the most freshest looking leaf will go in my bird's drinking water. So the natural elements of iron and green vegetation would go into the water for 2 days, and then empty that old water and give them a new refilling, which is like a medicine for the birds, and also a health for the immune system to have that Alternatively, only 1 drop of orange squeeze or grapefruit squeeze. Just 1 little droplet for vitamin C for both my rabbit at home. I have a dwarf mini rabbit. And for my bird, I have 2 birds that look like 2 lemons. And for my hamster, who I have called, brand new hamster, I haven't had a hamster for 2 years. So this hamster is called, after an American film, Casper, which means friendly ghost. So my rodent, I don't have a gas cooker in the kitchen, nothing like that. Yeah, he is on, or in, shall I say, he is in the kitchen, on top of a huge wheelie bin in the kitchen. And if I normally chop my fruit and vegetables on the dining table where I'm sitting, I can't be standing on the kitchen work surface. And I like the kitchen there so much because when he makes all that noise, I can shut the door so it's not too noisy. And the wheelie bin, which is a huge wheelie bin, is in the gap where the gas cooker would have been. And so then I've put 2 cages. One is called a hamster heaven on the top of that wheelie bin. And then my other cage, which was a brand new cage I bought yesterday, will go on top of that cage. So there'll be 2 cages. So when I'm cleaning one or the other, alternatively, the hamster can go in there like that into a cycle. And is a noisy hamster. My goal is to have added extra income so that I could sell these pets as a breeder, and also I'd like to become a professional breeder in the future if I can. But for now, I'm just not being a professional breeder. So around the idea of not being shocked, not being shaken, if I am short on money, I can make up to a limited amount of financial bracket figure of added income without it affecting my benefit system. And how I survive, I'm claiming eligible state benefits and and so I just don't want to be targeted by tyrants or by bullies. And so at night, my hamster's waiting for me for extra food and extra treats. So that's my routine in the evening from 6 p.m. And so I don't like to touch them or disturb the animals during the day, except for my birds, because they're early birds. They get up early in the morning. And so God's promise for me is, as long as I remember to pray and to seek God, seek and you will find, knock and the door will be opened. As God my priority, God's my grace, God's my glory, and God is everything for me, even greater than my life. So that God knows, the Creator, that I don't put the creature before God. It is God before the creature and all the materialistic things that God has created, whom I worship. And I could hardly believe how cruel the words of a horrible man was, that but broke his promise. The next morning, I arrived at the shop when I first met my 2 birds and my hamster in the shop, which was about a 40-minute drive. The manager said, we're not going to give you the animals. We're going to cancel your custom leave. And I said, what's going on? Why? And he said, we don't like the cause of us cursing you or carrying out these restrictions according to the government policy and our regulations for animal welfare. We don't like your old cage picture in a bookcase and for the bird, and we don't like the hamster heaven cage from your old hamster that died 2 years ago. He assumed that I would not clean it properly and I would not take care of it properly, which was a discrimination. And he would assume something that I know nothing about based on my appearances. They watched me the first moment I stepped my foot into that pet shop and instantly discriminated about me for having dark hair, dark eyes, a grey jumper, a dress with cobalt, bright blue, indigo with white flowers, and grey cardigan, and beige-looking boots. Oh, he said, she doesn't look English, she looks fat and ugly, she has a walking stick, she's walking to the shop. I can see her on our CCTV cameras. Did he receive a telephone call from my cyberbully police officer named Phil that I want to prosecute, who is turning everybody against me, the whole of England against me? Who the hell is Phil? Who the hell is this police officer that's stalking me? How horrible that I have a police officer stalking me, or plainclothes police, evil thugs, racist thugs stalking me. They're behaving the same as criminals or worse than the criminals, so the corrupt government is worse than the criminal. And I asked him, did somebody call you? He wouldn't answer the question. Did the king call you? Did someone royal call you? Did a celebrity call you? Did a public figure call you? Because I do have social media myself and publicity of this, that I came all the way here for nothing. Why did you accept my payment with proof of my existing old cages for your policy to take the payment, and then you sent me the receipt yesterday, so the day before you took the payment, and then it was like a law, come closer, to fall into the trap for you to reject me and say, get out. You can't have what you wanted because you made the purchase over the telephone. So I was oppressed and bullied by this systemic abuse that says, one extreme to the other, you have to do online shopping, or you can do online shopping and purchase things online via the email confirmation and via picture confirmation and via telephone banking transactions, like telephone, taking the order over the telephone or online, either way. And first of all, they say, yes, come closer. And then they say, no, get away. You can't have it. And I'm saying, it's you that's breaking your own rules. And it's you making a mistake, blaming and shaming me for your mistake. I can't accept or tolerate that. And I asserted the situation. So I started shaking. I was very upset. in a sense of feeling angry. So first of all, I started feeling upset that I was going to burst out crying because there were these two horrible people who were supposed to be professional that were treating me unprofessionally. And it was 9 a.m. when I arrived, or 9:30ish. And I didn't see anybody else in the shop because it was early morning, just yet. And I carried on talking in an assertive way. I wasn't going to be aggressive. It was the manager that was being aggressive. By his words of abuse, he said that he doesn't think that my home is suitable. And then he changed his wording and said he doesn't think that the cages are suitable. And I said, well, why didn't you say that? I then responded, at the time of purchase, you could have declined accepting my money. You could have said, no, thank you. We can't accept your money until you have the correct cage. They could have or should have said that, because they didn't. They accepted the cage, they accepted the money, and therefore I expected a service for them to give me what I purchased. Since they refused to give me what I purchased and offered to give me a refund, I insisted that I have paid £95 taxi to get to them. I said, I haven't come all the way here for nothing. Will you refund me my taxi journey? And yeah, he said he will refund me everything. So he hated me that much and wanted me to get out of the shop for a hate crime and thought crime that much that he wanted to pay me back the money for my taxi journey traveling expenses. Anything. He would do anything, even to the point of paying for my travel expenses, to get me out and to shut me up, which was extremely humiliating, rude, disrespectful, nasty, hate crime. For what? He doesn't know me. First time meeting. For a CCTV camera. My presentation, which was casual, not professional. I didn't have an office suit. He was already trying to legalize his protection and for being racist towards me. For the fact that he had this coded signal to contact the police because I started filming him. He felt intimidated. And so that was my self-defense. And he kept telling me to turn it off, shut it down. I didn't turn it off. I didn't shut it down. God helped me to be obstinate while he was being stubborn. I was positive, he was negative. I was assertive, he was aggressive. And so I made a joke and said, is your wife beating you up? Are you married? Because statistically wise, men that are not married are more aggressive. And he didn't like that joke. He then said that he was married, but he didn't mention the fact that he was happily married or not happily married. I didn't really want to know. It's none of my business. I was making a joke. And I said, I'm not going to turn this equipment until you pay me back my refund. And then I will delete you off of my equipment, my mobile phone. And I will show you I deleted you. So I showed him I deleted him. He then changed his mind and said he was not going to call the police. And then I asked the question, so I was doing their job. I was the one being professional. Is there anything that you could do to help put this right? Like perhaps you had a alternative cage that I could buy for the hamster and the bird and things like that. And I've shown you a picture of 2 cages I have for the bird, one bigger cage and one smaller cage. And so I'm happy to buy another cage for the hamster. Can you show me? So he went and showed me, and he lifted the cage and followed my instructions to keep the cage out of the box packaging. So it saves me more time and effort in unpacking and putting it together because it was flat packed. So he gave it to me unpacked on the till. I arrived at the till and used my bank card. I was unable to use the bank card because it was already activated. I have used that same bank card in the same week for internet shopping and other things, for paying my bills and things like that. And all three of my cards with a new PIN on the chip and PIN card, it did not work. It could only work on an ATM machine. So the government is lying to the customers by saying you can activate your bank card at any shop with a chip and PIN card paying machine. It will activate it, because I needed to protect my security and give me my card a new PIN, and I was unable to do it, which is very strange, very bizarre regarding my security matters, and somebody else is overseeing and controlling my bank details, which is again against the law, or these criminals who are above the law are getting away with it. Are getting away with this abuse and attack on me, my civil rights, my human rights to privacy. And they're saying I'm childish because I'm unemployed. I'm not a woman because I'm unemployed and disabled. And all types of horrible, cruel allegations and nastiness. So what was I going to do? If I was alone, I would lose this battle. Since I'm not alone, and the taxi driver's there, the Pakistani man came in and said, don't worry, since your bank card isn't working, I will help you. Take my bank card in this crisis situation, and you can do a bank transfer, because the manager refused to do a bank transfer payment system, or any other payment system, such as receive a check, or only one payment system. So I was very surprised, and thank God I felt a sacrifice at the altar of the devil. Because these are devil's representatives, these are demons, they're low life, less human. To abuse me because of a telephone call they got from a corrupt police officer, possibly, to abuse me because they can see me at the CCTV camera and watch my emails that I send. So this corrupt police officer has stolen my phone, stolen my location, stolen all my emails, stolen all my text messages. And I say stolen because someone else is controlling. Like yesterday, I sent a message to my foster mum and told her I was buying my animals, and I was very happy. And my message was put in a draft box. What? What is this? Is it your phone? Is it my phone, Anne? And Anne, my foster mum, responded, it's not coming from my phone. It must be your phone. So this is abuse. I'll have to find, according to the world, systemic abuse, not God's world. It's the devil's world. They have attacked my bank. I now have to, so they don't target people that actually do benefit fraud, such as gamblers of Paul, or Paul, my brother in the devil, or sexual offenders such as Roger. They don't attack them. They only target the most vulnerable and the most beautiful and the best people, the best mothers, the best wives, the best. That means we're the best people because we are morally right, not politically right. We have more decency, have more civility, we have more character, we are better people. They're the worst people because they have the blood of the innocent on their hands, and they swallow you whole. as an evil dragon or dinosaur. So it's monstrous what they do. And through racism, through code of abuse, track and tracing my phone, my taxi, and my children's life under a constant microscope, as if I am a microscopic creature or magnifying glass. Constant, every aspect of my life being scrutinized and attacked by the devil, piling up to the top, mountain high. I can't have a break. I can't go anywhere without them stalking me, and I can't get them to stop. How can they be caught? How can they be scrutinized? It's impossible through systemic abuse and corrupt police officers. Every time I have a new mobile phone number connected to Tesco network or any network, they have enabled these to attack me. So I'm not married. I'm a single woman. I'm not a criminal. I'm not a drug addict. I'm not a mad woman. I haven't used mental health services since 2016, 17. They're determined to put me into the nut house by the very ones who are mad and insane. So it's totally insane for them to take on my purchase and not give me what I paid for. It's total sacrifice of me and my purchase as a customer. And it reminds me of my sheep when I was in my girlhood at my father's house who I called Percher, that my father killed, who is the father of the devil and of the lies, not God, my father. So it is Christ, my Christ, who has been slaughtered. We don't need to repeat the slaughter. So by his blood I am healed, by his wounds I am protected, and we fight these devils. So I wanted to ask myself the question, why was I shaking nervously and had so much bad stress? Is it because the manager of the shop threatened to call the police because I was recording him and I refused to leave the shop without my purchase? Or is it because he was afraid of me making it public, making bad publicity against the shop? Or is it because of the fact that I was shaking because I was afraid? Or was I shaking because I was angry? And so the answer came to me, I was shaking because of both, being afraid, first of all, and then angry, second of all, but mainly angry. And I had to learn to be assertive, not aggressive. And so that was horrible. It was horrible, but I ended up having what was promised to me because of my taxi driver. I won the battle, and I paid him back as soon as I could on the same day by bank transfer and telephone banking. I can't do internet banking because I don't have a computer. I would not use a mobile phone to do internet banking for security purposes. And I cannot use a computer because of my disability, laptop or anything like that. I'm still fragile and suffer from a lot of headaches, and so I'm supposed to be using it for my therapy, not for cyberbullies. Since I do have cyberbullies for about 4 or 5 years, it's made me very weary and weeping all the time from not being able to fetch and get things very quickly, being totally alone, independent living. I don't need this cyberbullies in addition to all my other problems and pain. And they want to attack my beauty. They won't allow me to finish my prayer. They want to attack God's promises in my life. Because I don't have golden bracelets and I don't have a golden ring and necklace, and because I don't have makeup and I don't have blonde hair and blue eyes, and it's all to do with appearances and my status as a single woman, that they tend to, these Satanists or these devil bad angels, glorify in robbery and rape. This is how they thrive. This is how they grow and develop, robbery and rape. Rape would mean abuse woman, which is perverted and horrible. And so everything worked out well at that shop. He started smiling at me. He started giving me discounts. He apologized profusely, and we went to the till. It was paid for by the taxi driver. I gave the money back to the taxi driver on the same day for a method of payment by a telephone rather than the till, because it wasn't working on the till, again created by my cyber bullies and oppressive legislators, judges, authorities up top who have overtaken my bank account. And it's horrendous, it's horrible, it's hell on earth. Like, I very rarely go out as it is. It's a special occasion that they've ruined, as a going out once in a year, being housebound and bedridden. I cannot take 10 steps forwards and be forced to be taking 10 steps backwards, because everything I try to build and encourage these demons and these devils come along as human representatives working for the bad angels to destroy everything I build, which is the personality disorder cat dog, satanic personality, in other words, the north-south, in other words, Cain and Adam, in the spirit of a soul cycle through the spirit body and physical body, that says you don't belong to the devil, you belong to the good angel, therefore we will attack the good angels. It's the devil's army. Like, the entire England is darkened since the fact that they're saying it's a good thing to have Brexit, because we're no longer part of the European Union, which kills citizens. So it's good that we do Brexit, that we've left the European Union. That's what they're saying. However, it is bad, on the other hand, that since Brexit, it's only the very rich that are respected or not abused. So what is worse than disrespect? It is physical and spiritual abuse or emotional abuse. Spiritual abuse, or any type of abuse, whether it is done verbally or physically, it's the same thing. And it's far worse compared to disrespect or disservice. And this is happening towards the poor through Agenda 21, which is worse hypocrisy. Brexit did not like the European Union telling them what to do, and their Agenda 21. Ironically, Brexit and the British people have their own laws to implement Agenda 21 anyway. And so that's against the disabled, which is the same as what the Nazis did towards the disabled, the crippled, and the pregnant women who were single. And they would target them and execute them, exterminate them. And it's the same principle, same policy, same merciless, no pardon. And an evil type of perfectionism. You're not allowed to be single and be pregnant, even if your husband is dead. You're not allowed to be a crippled person. Part of Agenda 21. So if they've left the European Union, they haven't left the Agenda 21, which belongs to the European Union. So there's a lot of things that are still activated through rules and regulations of the European Union that is still active through Brexit. It hasn't left. Neither has it rejoined. But things are worse for migrants or people who are claiming state benefits. Life is worse for us as a result, because it represents the disabled who are in the working class and rich to be protected only. This is very bad and unfair. It's worse than death to survive in an environment where there's constant hostility and constant abuse for your status quo, whether you're employed or unemployed, and for the fact that you're single and not a couple, or that you've had your child taken away from you 10 years ago, or even 20 years ago, even 70 years ago. You have this ruin of your reputation through these bad judges, and they're bad because they're partial. They never considered what the hell I was going through: divorce, domestic abuse, and the death of my daughter's dad. And so they never considered that. Instead, they've made up lying reports, and any celebration I had was stopped, overturned by excessive amount of fireworks, excessive amount of building works, an excessive amount of garrison, car alarm, car horns, noise pollution, littering my garden when I did have a garden without any fence. They denied me to make my own fence, planning permission for being unemployed. They denied me planning permission to refurbish my bathroom for being unemployed. They've denied me permission to have the free service for rubbish assisted collection at my front door because of being in a flat, not in a house. It's not my fault that my spinal cord medical problems that deteriorated as a result of the government cancelling my operation and saying it was death-threatening or life-threatening, life cut short. If I was to have an operation, there was a huge risk, as I rejected their offer to cut my spine in order to drain the disc that had gone into area that had trapped. He could see on the MRI scan it was trapped in some type of a sac, and they had to drain it and cut the bone. And I said, why do you have to cut my bone? This Indian surgeon had said, we have to cut your bone. I was saying, no, you don't, in order to drain my slip disc. I also had severe sciatica nerve damage. So for children, it takes 4 years to recover. For adults, it takes about 8 years to 9 years to recover. From the year 2019 was when I took my MRI scan, was when I had lost my saddle sensation, and was when I deteriorated from 2019. And 2 years ago, I had the worst of it. So from 2019, then I have 8 years or 9 years of recovering to do with the correct treatment, which so far I haven't had any correct treatment. And having an injection in my spine was to relieve me from pain, but that only lasted for 2 weeks and then it disappeared. So the surgery was cancelled and I can't climb up a hill. Literally, I have a heel bulging disc, what looks like a heel on my back. Like I say, and my daughter doesn't even realize that it was because of her that my back is damaged and broken. And I've never told her that. I never blamed her for it. All these years, how when she was 9 years old, just before they took her from me, I gave her piggybacks, I carried her bicycle every week, carried her heavy things. I sacrificed a lot for my daughter, and my back went crunch. And so, because I don't drive a car, that's another thing. You would custom have a father. She didn't have a father. So it's embarrassing, the fact that I didn't have my daughter have a normal... Again, why am I blamed by the government for having the right divorce, for having domestic abuse and violence? And I had begun to go blind, not realizing that there's a corrupt police officer on my case that wants me to leave England. It's a racist thug, which comes from a man called Jay and his associations. I gave my daughter a special blessing because I wanted her to literally be spoiled. I didn't want her to become a selfish, spoiled brat, though. And her father had hunted me as if I was the animal, for I divorced an Englishman. So he wanted to punish me, blame me for his death on his heart surgery bypass, when in fact he designed his own suicide because his son had died, jumping into the ocean with his clothes on at age 16. We were already divorced. And so at that time he had gone mad. He had abused our daughter, not his daughter, my daughter. For 6 months they separated me. He hated the government for the way they treated me badly. He lived with me in a separate room, or separate beds, sort of close together in the same room, but we were divorced, and he wanted to return my daughter in my care from 2010 and 11. And of course that the authorities have a copy of that. They know that he wanted my daughter to live with me. And and he was very quick at giving back my custody to me. But then he wanted to attack me because of the child maintenance. He was complaining he was paying too much money. So it became ultimately a false hero and him complaining of paying too much money. So I didn't owe anything for child maintenance. I gave all that back. And so I had my daughter taken away from me as a result of his death. The government wanted revenge, and everything overturned for the devil's evil type of glory and evil type of grace, which is focused on money and fame. So yes, I divorced him for the fact that he was a bog monster and that he was a bloody nasty pervert hiding a stash of DVDs of pornography material, including us when we had sex. That my hamster accidentally escaped from his cage and went under the bath from the bedsit where I used to live, and I removed the panel and found loads of DVDs. So I got him to destroy the DVDs. I told him I was leaving him, divorcing him. His endless accusations of me having an affair. I wasn't having an affair, never had an affair. Because that's what his ex-wives did. He assumed I was the same as his ex-wife, which is a psychological baggage and madness. And so I had gone through hell as a result of being married for 4 years, only 4, and being dominated and overpowered by a corrupt man and a corrupt police. I have never had a judge or a solicitor or anybody that is on my side. Even my best friend called Denise, that was as a sister in the devil, adopted in the devil, she hated the fact that I'd gone through a divorce. So everybody seems to love Chris, my ex-husband, and hate me. Everybody seems to believe in the lies of Jay, that I had an affair with him. I did not have an affair with Jay. He was my sexual molester in 2007. And then the next, I was assaulted by my brother called Paul. Not real brother, adopted brother. He was fat and ugly, gambling shite. I saw him once or twice a year. And he took that advantage of overpowering me, and he molested me. Oh dear, that was in 2015. Oh no. It was about 2012 or 13 when he did that to me. Then I wasn't touched sexually like that since then. And then it was Roger in 2022. So each incident that happened as a one-off, I was always blamed. I was always shamed as a woman. No one ever supported me. And if they said that they did, it was a predator. As a fake hero. So it's such a delight to looking at the dream of my past and the present vision, persuaded by the taxi driver as a true hero, who believes me, who actually supported me in a crisis situation in practical ways and in emotional ways. We were intellectually like a family. We were like, it was pure. It was no perversity involved. He's a married man. He's happily married. And the taxi driver made me safe and paid as much as the shop wanted. And there's a lot of pressure on me as a single woman every year, and the government's making it worse, to target the most vulnerable for abuse. That's my point of doing this video. To the point of making us extinct, disappear, vanish. It should be the other way around, that the monstrosity criminals and those that use coded systemic abuse and CCTV cameras and mobile phones and tracking devices, cyber bullies, it should be them that are in fact harmed and not the other way around. And that's how they get rich, on my suffering, on the backs of the poor, and cheating me and the humblest of people of justice, destroying my purchase, ruining my reputation, contaminating everything that they touch, cursing everything they touch. So even though I have explained that cage is not used for a long time, sitting in the bookshelf, and I had gone into hospital with problems with my spine and surgery, I've only just got back on my feet again, and they're saying no to me. You can't have this, you can't have that. We're not selling you this. And so very stubbornly, as if I had come into a wrestling ring with a woman manager who was blonde, long blonde hair, dyed. You can see it's dyed. Looks horrible and dry. And the other, and the manager, the shop manager of the whole shop. So I was prepared to wrestle in there until from daybreak until evening time. I'm going to stay there. I'm not going anywhere. And even if you have to take me to jail and arrest me. However, he was afraid of the publicity. He was afraid of my assertive skills. He was afraid that I had a witness who was my taxi driver, and he stopped bullying me. We shook hands twice. He became very sneaky. He had this horrible grin on his face that was mischievous. So I had to have a grin on my face that was mischievous too. But mine was a holy battle. He is an unholy battle. I had constructive criticism suggested that he should ask, is there anything else that we can do in a polite way, not a rude way, not over ask the question, and to give a solution to the problem and suggestions. So that's how I killed the Goliath, as David killed Goliath. And I was rescued by my taxi driver, who was young as young as heart as I was. He was young. He was hopeful, and it's cruel. There is a lot of cruelty to hope in truth without a friend. And so my taxi driver was a friend. He was like a little boy later on. We're seeing all my animals at home. And I was like a little girl. So being young at heart is important. Not be completely adult. I like to be completely adult and to have a complete child in me. Because we all start as children before we become adults. And to be a healthy human, you need both. You need to be a complete child and a complete adult in the aspect of all virtues. God says you cannot inherit the kingdom of God unless you have childlike trust. And so I was going to have some bitter tears if I lost the battle. I was going to be in a lot of distress if I had lost the battle, feeling constantly angry, constantly agitated, that I wasted my money, I wasted my time, and that somebody added insult to my injury if I had lost the battle. And so when I returned home, I noticed that my fire alarm for carbon monoxide was beeping for a couple of hours. And I'm thinking, is there a fault with the alarm? Maybe the battery has died. Or do I have carbon monoxide gas? Contact the emergency service, had a fire brigade in here. 2 men and 1 woman arrived, assured me that it was a faulty alarm, got rid of it, disposed it, recycle it out of my home, and gave me a new replacement. Checking if there was, I have new equipment, they've given it to me for free. They made me fill in form, and they made a report on the system that Three Rivers District Council and the whole of the county of Hertfordshire authorities know that I have contacted them, as I was afraid. And then they explained that it is impossible to have a carbon monoxide gas leak while the boiler is switched off. It's a gas heated boiler. And also there's paraffin in the electrical heater. Everything was tested. He asked me if I was smoking. I said, no, I don't smoke. If I drink alcohol, it's socially done, and tiny little bit, and mainly diluted in water. And so I explained this. They were very friendly, approachable, polite. They didn't make me feel like I was wasting their time in that big red traditional fire brigade van came, which surprised me. I was not expecting that. And they came in looking like Ghostbusters, and they were not furious at me. They felt that I was like a woman living in a prison because of being in an inappropriate accommodation. Again, it's not my fault. I didn't know I was going to deteriorate in 2019, and that my condition with my spine was going to become suddenly worse, since my physiotherapist had made me overdo the walking. I walked for about 1 mile from my home to the hairdresser and then back home again. So she made me overdo it, where my spine had collapsed and I had lost my saddle sensation in my saddle, and everything had gone numb, and I was paralyzed as a result of that for 4 years. Couldn't sit or stand at all, and I was hopping on 1 leg. Couldn't walk, couldn't stand up straight. and constant pain, agony. And so I couldn't sue them. Maybe I should sue them, but I don't know how. I need to get some advice. The taxi driver advised me to sue them. I'd take them to court and have compensation, because she was boasting that she got married after that and that she's probably not working there anymore. However, they still have copies of their horrible reports. I remember they're coming here as a community nurse from the free hospital, NHS, and said, "What's that you've got there? It looks like urine in bottles." And I said, "No, it's not urine, it's apple cider vinegar. I use this vinegar to clean my shower because it's constantly dirty." It was a 5-litre container. So she had no common sense as an ugly evil nurse that wrote that report accusing me of keeping urine in my bottles. And so that's how they attacked me. On the NHS records, and all types of disgusting things that they would say that are untrue, connected to the community nurse that came to see me. And they changed offices also. They're in a new office. I think I could find their address somewhere, but I've got so much paperwork. It's the same as a wasp nest. So it causes me too much bad stress. I explained to the taxi driver for his advice to take them to court, to squeeze out my last drop of living energy. I can't do that. I said, my life is more important to me than money and compensation. And we picked up from there in our conversation, and he listened to me. And I think that's why he felt sorry for me. He had some pity to help me at the till regarding my bank refusing the new PIN. And so this has happened to me twice, and I think it is set up. I think it's a designed destruction and connected to my bank. It's not something I've imagined. It's an absolute reality of being bullied, harassed, destroying my harmony for hell's way. And so he felt pity, I think, sympathy for me, what I've explained to him about bad stress that is a killer, and my health is more important to me and to staying alive, surviving, than arranging compensation, because that's extremely difficult for a single person to do. If I, however, had a community or family and friends that could help me, then I would sue them. But he also recognized that I was totally alone, single independent woman, and my nearest family are in Cambridge. Also, they already don't like me. So, except for a few cousins, but I have a main cousin which is a bully and keeping me away. She's keeping me away from my other kind cousins, are recognizing me, but never keeping their promises. And they would only put a trap for me every time I phoned them. So I cannot feel that they're my brothers and sisters. And I'm very worried every time I contact her that how is she going to accuse me next? Both of them, they can come across as so lovely and say nice things by mouth, but by their heart, they're cussing me and cursing me. So what they say with their mouth is not the same what they say with their hearts. So both my foster mum, Anna, and my cousin, Tina. But I'm hoping to God that this could change if I can find friends and a new family where I am caught up with not fighting the battle alone through this, through prejudice, racial profiling, targeting me through systemic abuse, and closing the door of positive opportunity for me, and opening the door for positive opportunities for the criminals and the antisocial slave masters and racist thugs. This is wrong. It's the wrong way around. It should be that the criminals are restricted and the non-criminals are given positive opportunities and safety protections promised them, even if I had to pay for it. But unfortunately, there is no services across Britain that would provide a project or a package or a charity to give innocent people, victims, should not have to be automatically put in the worst category as criminals. Since not all victims are criminals, since not all victims are stupid, since not all victims are the devil's lot. And so they have demonized victimization, they have demonized lone parenting, they have demonized everything that they could think of and weaponize against them. Which is horrible. It's the same as a horror film. And so I've focused on the three things at the beginning of this audible stories, connecting my Christian faith in everything that I do. I ended up with the Tower of Babel for the third point, and there is a fourth point, which is Moses. So Moses was inside the basket, floating on the river, until someone came along and found him and helped him to survive against all odds as a little oblong creature, obviously in danger of crocodiles and all types of creatures, monsters in the river or lake. And so, fascinating enough, it was the princess and Miriam, baby's own mother, and all this of Moses. And so I think it's also the same name that Jesus' mother was also called Miriam. Or is it Martha, Miriam, Maria? Translated in the Jewish language, that they both probably had the same name, which is also fascinating to me, that Jesus calls himself the second Adam and also greater than Moses, which Jesus' enemies were outraged and furious that very angry that Jesus said that he was greater and better than Moses, or greater, a better person than Moses, had more authority than Moses. And it was an answer to the human race as a savior, our prayer to have a savior and authority that is not corrupted, that is pure, and that there can be such a thing as holy politics through Moses and through King David. It is possible to have a holy professional, a Christian professional, judge, politician, or civil servant. It is possible to have something pure, not only perverted, corrupted. And that's what my Christian faith reminds me every day, that even though there is so much evil in the world, there is a Savior who is everlasting and has promised a new planet Earth and a new human body, physical and spiritual, to help us survive, the humankind, and be rewarded for our Christian faith, to have God, who is brighter than the sun, give us a new planet Earth and a body that will never die, no more death, no more war. And to have food in a manna in the desert, for Jesus being the witnesses to God, not an alien. There is only one God, the creator of heaven and earth. There is no one else like God. God is unique. God is unique, individual, independent. of any other God. So God says there is no other like me. Maybe similar, but not the same. In the character of God. And so God's people, I believe, are still alive, even though they have died. In the physical, they have still got the spiritual body. They haven't received the new spiritual body or the new physical body. Moses, after he died, and Moses and King David did not have a new physical or spiritual body. Jesus, however, is the only one of the human messengers, prophets, the one and only holy man who has a new physical and new spiritual body. And they saw Jesus go up into the sky, and likewise we will all see Jesus come down from the sky. There will be no one on earth that will not see Jesus. Everyone on earth will see Jesus when Jesus comes down from the sky, because all the elements will melt and all the old earth will disappear into a new system, a new holy government, and God being there. No more sea, no more ocean, no more sun. God will make everything new, where there will be no more evil forever, everlastingly. So this is why I don't give up. This is why I don't feel suicidal. This is why I am not daunted or dubious to be thinking about evil winning. Evil will never win, because God has already won the battle between good and evil. And this is why we are God's people, special, not stupid. So like I have said, the bird cage looks as brand new. I have another bigger cage for the birds as well when it gets crowded with other birds in it. I'm looking forward to hatching my first egg of the budgies and giving them a nesting box. I'm looking forward to breeding my bunnies and having some extra income, so that I am desolate and I'm sort of a single person in the middle of nowhere on an island somewhere, surrounded by ghosts. Because they're no people, they're demons. So to treat my name with respect is to say that I'm not tracked and traced. My phone devices are not stolen. They don't make horrible, malicious telephone calls, secret calls to the shop manager, which I think that is what they've done. Or they've passed on an angry message through CCTV cameras by impatient, nasty individuals that wanted to ruin my shopping experience. Who's doing this? Is it a tyrant? Is it Putin? Is it Kim Jong-un? Is it somebody else who is a global leader that's doing this to me in England as a foreigner in England that's overtaken the foreign secretary? Or is it another tyrant that has nothing to do with world leaders and is another tyrant who is a police officer that has been persecuting me for 20 years, whose actual name I don't know, if it is Phil or not. I don't know, but I do know that the YouTubers do know. There are many YouTubers that do know what's happening to me, being a single, alone survivor, but they haven't told me. So they know more than I do, which is can be nerve-wracking, actually. So these were my events yesterday, the stories of my first outing, and how I had a fire brigade providing me new equipment and reassurance. And another strange thing that has happened is the company for my housing, which is Thrive Homes, have a contractor, which is TSG. They're operative contractors that did the installation of the new boiler in February 2024. And it's broken down for having it switched off during the summer to save the gas and save money on my bill for gas and for hot water boiling. The boiler is gas operated. It's activated for my hot water and for the central heating. So I switched it off in the summer for 6 months approximately, and I can't switch it back on. And then I had an expert, which from British Gas, in emergency services, and he couldn't switch it back on. He went outside. He went outside to look at the gas main panel. He tried everything to switch it on with the programmer for time. He switched that on, switched it off. The boiler could not be switched on. He tried everything with the thermostat, with his equipment. And he said there's something wrong with the boiler. It needs new parts. So they betrayed me again secretly through TSG. And in other words, to save Thrive Homes the money. And they've endangered me at the same time. So it's betrayal of my trust, abuse of my trust. And this is what my landlord has done with my boiler situation, with my shower situation, and with my free services for rubbish-assisted collection at my front door, upstairs to the second floor flat. They've changed the policy by politics in 2017. I had 4 years of the service that suddenly stopped prior to that was available for 4 years at the flat, collecting my rubbish, bin, bags every week for my household waste and recycling. Every week they would do it, and then suddenly it stopped because Thrive Homes reported it against their Fire and Safety Regulation Act. So these three things that Thrive Homes, there's a fourth thing, it's because of Section 20 that they've managed to give a loophole for criminals to come in and wrongly accuse me through rigging the system to kidnap my daughter. All of which, 4 things have happened. There could be a 5th thing where they're accusing me through mental health services as a minor personality disorder of doing self-harm and damaging this property, which is something I've never done. So this is how they've imprisoned me in my own home. And it's made me very angry that they've done this, because they've cornered me like a rat but they're the rats. They're the poisonous, corrupted villains in the village that seem to be always first seen and last heard. First seen and heard type. And they're getting in my way of my future. And they're also attacking me connected to my social media. And so this is all wrong. I need to now find a solicitor and a lawyer to say, get off my social media, get out of my home, get out of my neighborhood, get out of my bank account, get out of my state benefits, get out of my daughter's life, get out of my doctor's surgery, get out of my shop, get out of my map, get out of my location, get out of my passport, get out of this, get out. It's just too much. Everything, my bills, my emails, my mobile phones, this same corrupt authority is overseeing and controlling it. Even though my daughter is now 20 years old and they've signed her off of children's social services, while they persecute me under a minor personality disorder without a crime, and I'm treated worse than a criminal. Even prisoners have better sanitation and safer showers and safer, cleaner and stronger shower facilities compared to my home, which is constantly flooding with second-hand pumps, no bath, only shower, flooding all the time. They've promised me refurbished bathroom 7, 8 years ago that was rejected because, again, of my status being unemployed. They stopped me from refurbishing my own shower, purchasing my own thing. And at the same time, they are complimenting all the hostile neighbors who are making a hostile environment and giving them everything. So it's homeowners versus the non-homeowners for the devil's convenience, for the narcissist convenience. And so it's very proportionate and an unequal and unfair society as a result. And that they would have the best craftsmen, the best quality service, and everything precious for them and quality for them, for the worst type of individuals who are criminals and abusers. And whereas God's people cannot have a choice and cannot have any quality. Who is making these horrible, horrible realities and policies? It's dehumanizing that I had to pay privately from my pocket, exploiting my benefit money from my disability to buy medication, to buy holidays or anything like that, given to the rubbish collection private services, since the free services had suddenly stopped. And so now I'm trying to save myself some money by taking my own rubbish down. And yeah, that's what I'm going to be doing. But and while I'm resting to recover from my physical pain from an outing, my rubbish is accumulating. And if I overdo it with my spine, I could suddenly deteriorate again and go back to square one and be paralyzed again. So I would have to risk putting my bins in 3 or 4 layers wrapped up, one inside another like a Russian doll. All my bins, not the black bins, but small little ones, which is the size of a grocery bag from your general grocery shops. Wrap it up into layers and place it in on a balcony outside, and just play like football in the sky. Throw it over my balcony, tiny little bags, make sure it doesn't go on anyone's head, next to my bin, and then go down the stairs as there's no lift. I've already completed forms for November and with my housing to help me downsize from a 2-bedroom into a 1-bedroom. And that would support my future housing benefit with the entire authorities of Three Rivers and Council. And it would support, then it would change, my luck would change where I'm supported, my housing benefit supported as I'm downsized to a 1-bedroom for a 1-person, as my daughter's not with me anymore. And so since my daughter's not with me, I still contact my cousin Tina and my foster mum Anne, just to that's the only way I could hopefully, hope to God, be eventually reunited with my daughter. But for now, she doesn't want to have anything to do with me because I said I only trust Christians. I don't trust non-Christians. And she doesn't want to have anything to do with me. She thinks that I have aborted her or that she's worse than abortion. And I said, no, I've never had an abortion. No, I've never had a miscarriage. And no, I just needed you to stay away from me while I had sickness and diarrhea. I couldn't see you. And I'm sorry, but I wanted you to have correspondence, writing to me, sending me videos, sending me artwork, and vice versa. She refused. Can't be bothered. Gone to university, forgets about her mum, probably has teenage sex, does everything I tell her not to. Try drugs, try smoking, try teenage sex. But I hope to God she hasn't. She's still growing. Her brain is growing until she's 25 years old. She's going to turn 20 next year, 2025. And yeah, I haven't seen my daughter for probably about 7 years now. And because of the COVID pandemic and all this. And, it may have offended some tyrants and called them too old. But no, I think that age is just a number. But the demon spirit in the spiritual body that is constantly negative or constantly perverting justice, that is what you call a bad old. There is such a thing as a good old, as the elders described in the New Testament, the book of Revelation, the 24 elders, who God respects, and they respect God. They prostrate themselves onto the ground and praise God, the Holy One, the 24 elders, non-stop, 24/7. So these are the respectful elders who are devout and as God worshippers, not human worshippers. The human worshippers are the ones who are the bad elders, who are delusional and designing death for everyone. So these are the bad elders who have also attacked me through a man called Roger and Luby, who are capitalists and colonialists, and who are human worshippers. So these are bad elders. And so I pray for God to help me pass over evil and to cover me by the precious blood of Christ, founded in Romans chapter 9, and especially the whole book of Romans in the New Testament, and also the Old Testament of talking about Passover in the book of, in the Old Testament, which would be the book of, I think, where do you find the original Passover is Exodus 25 to 30, and the book of Leviticus, which is the first original passing over evil. They put sacrificed animals, unblemished and not diseased animals that were killed, and then that blood was put on the doorposts, and it was a sign in their feast, and also passing over to remember that God had saved them from everything bad. And it was a special meal that they rejoiced in the goodness of God, sacrificing the animals for their sins as a perfect, good sacrifice to keep the evil spirits and demons away. And so that worked. But then Jesus came along against these, not against, but Jesus came along to give us a different feast in the book of Leviticus, Numbers, and the one I've just said. It has been upgraded and updated in the New Testament against the rebellion. Stubborn mules, bad horses and mules who refuse to listen to God and refuse to trust God. And they have their own agenda. Opposite from Christianity, which is relevant today. Same thing, but different time. And so we know that we were given the example of the almond branch. And I think there was a leader called Aaron with the Levites. And the 12 almond branches in God's tent. The one that came to flower will be the one that that Christ and God had chosen. And this is way before Christ came to the virgin womb. He existed in the spiritual body as God's only son. So when Aaron died and they were all moaning and groaning again, as Scrooges, and so other leaders came to their senses and realized that Moses' prayers became true, and Moses was the leader, and other leaders, and that's how they found their leaders, similar to an ephod, using the almond branches, and also in the maturity or in the midlife crisis, in their leadership skills, they had followed the example of how Moses used a bronze snake to everybody to see, was lifted up in the desert to cure them from their sicknesses, diseases, and all bad venomous snakes in the desert, which is symbolic for today of all the corrupt officials and professionals and civil servants that are corrupted, that are representing the bad snakes of all the systemic abuse and prostitution, whoring, bad spies and suspicion, and all types of corruptions in leaders would represent these bad snakes. So Jesus was lifted in the desert, the same as Moses was lifted in the desert as a bronze snake, to give us escape from hell, to tread on the serpent and not be harmed, and even have food or poisonous food such as delivery takeaways that could be poisoned and still survive because of what Jesus did, to one man's food, another man's poison, and to be able to tread on serpents or touch serpents and live, or tread on serpents and live, or consume poison and live, all through the testimonies and trials and tribulations of God's servants and messengers when Christ came through God in a virgin womb, was born, he lived to die, to go in hell and through hell, and to come back to life with encouragement and help as a savior to come out of darkness and distress. So coming to a close now for 2 hours of doing my video, of all these many stories. I now have these pets at home, and it's like my family. And however, my family in Christ is obviously more important than the animals. And I'm still looking. I'm still determined to find them and meet them hopefully on the 25th of January at the location I have put on one of my channels on YouTube. And that also is next to a police station, so that if I'm approached by somebody that I don't accept, that I know is demonic, I can then approach the police for help. So not all police are bad. And I'm hoping to have a suitable home in the future. And I have challenged and competed in the right sense, not in the wrong sense, to cause somebody who is good, of God's people, distress. No. My intention is to cause somebody bad distress, but not through me directly. So after taking my pain relief, I then plan to put my little bags of rubbish on the balcony until the pain has subsided. It's very, very bad pain. And I'm like a wounded soldier. And so going back even further to the beginning of the day yesterday in closing this video, stepping my foot outside for the first time, I was surprised to feel how warm October was in England, United Kingdom. It's not as cold as I thought it was going to be. And there was an air of fog, filled with fog, very deep fog, to further confuse the bad no people. They hate the weather, bad fogs and weather. They're always complaining about the weather, aren't they? Rather than seek for a solution to the problem, they would highlight or blast out the problem through extra loudspeakers, rather than blast out through extra loudspeakers the solution to the problem. So they're the builders versus the destroyers. They're also bad builders who are only building because they want to show off what they have and what they've stolen from God's people. So I'm closing this video now with publicity of what's happened. I didn't use the name of the manager or the shopkeepers. I just used my experience, shopping experience. Or the taxi driver, didn't use his name. I used the name in this video in conclusion of my foster mum and my cousin. I'd like to invite them on my social media in the future. And hopefully restore some of my cousins, if not all of them, because I don't believe that all of them are unkind and don't believe they're all partial judges. That some of them will see things from my perspective as well. Which surprised me. The worst bully of my cousins is probably going to be one of the ones that could be my best friend. You never know, because God works in mysterious ways. When God makes my enemies who have bullied me the most acknowledge what they've done wrong to me, only when the same thing that has happened to me happens to them. Because that's the only way that they get to understand. They don't understand the pain you're going through unless, for example, if I've broken my leg, you don't understand the pain until you've broken your leg. You won't sympathize with me until you break your leg. So that's the thing with the enemy that does not have natural empathy or sympathy or mercy. They're supernaturally affected in the sense that they project or force an innocent person to carry their guilt or to suffer what they're suffering, which is what a typical abuser does. Saints don't want to do that. Saints don't do that. God's people don't do that. However, God does do that to the enemy. Exact measure of pain and suffering onto them that they have forced onto the innocent, including death threats, because they have the blood of the innocent on their hands. So I don't believe that any criminal or bad individual gets away with anything bad that they've done. Because we as the human race have a holy judge, and no one is unnoticed. Everybody is measured according to what they've said and done. And that gives me reassurance to live. And that even my worst enemy can be used by God to give me some comfort and to confront my enemies and my tyrants, to say, if he can have that, why can't I have it? And I'm innocent. Why do you only give good things to bad people? So I close my video as Maya Maria Marina. 2 hours long. It's probably the longest video I've done on YouTube. October 2024. Can I put some lights on and just film me at the end as evidence that it is me recording this? So, I cannot get up straight. My back is bent, and when I do stand up straight, and I have a lot of pain as a result of doing the extraordinary thing. So I should be able to see myself, but according to this camera, which they have also stolen, I can't. Oh, I can see myself now. So I'm right next to the light bulb. Here's my bird. And my bunny, if it can be seen, but it won't let me turn the camera around or put the lights on. pause. This is my other phone, if it can be seen. And it tells the time as well. Let's see the time. 6 o'clock in the morning. Yeah, and it says the date as well. Saturday the 19th of October 2024. But it's like a weapon that is weaponized against me when somebody else controls it. And that's the problem I've got. And that's why I'm doing this video also, to say the enemy has too much power and has taken away from me too much. So by shining the light, I then have I have treated my hair, got grease in it. My pet, who's just woken up. There's the other one in the corner. And I have like a battery-operated candle, never using the real candle of real fire. It's just battery-operated fire. I'm going to clean that whole thing with a soft cloth, which is up there at the moment. Soft cloth to make sure that all the fire poo fly that landed on the bars are cleansed. It's not rust, it's poo, so it's not diseased. It's horrible. My pet behind me, which is my rabbit. Let's see. Can I show what I do routinely to clean their toilet? Hello, Sukasa. Can you see me? Can I open the cage so I can see you properly? This is Sukasa. She's got her cabbage, beetroot. She's also got dried raspberry here and spinach. Sukasa. She's got dry raspberry here, some pellets that I've dropped, and curly kale and beetroot. Hello, Sukasa. Can you see me? Can you see me? Are you doing well? So she's enjoyed that. Hopefully the camera worked this time. I'm also growing some herbs in that pot. Growing herbs. I'm gonna put my sandals on or slippers on. So going to see my pet hamster. What has he done? He's emptied his bed, his new bed that he's declined, and said no thank you. He's moved in the corner. I've got a heavy photo album to stop him escaping. There's no door at the front of the cage, which is very bizarre. I can't put my arm inside. So he's hiding in that cage, right on the back. If the camera will allow me to show him. He's gone right at the back of this cage. In the corner. Or he was. Where's he gone to? Where are you? Where are you? Where are you? Hello? Is anybody here? He's inside his bed. He's sleeping in his bed. Hello? Anybody there? He's sleeping. He likes his new bed. Hello? Friendly ghost. Friendly ghost. Come and say hello. There you are. I can see you. Hello? What's you like? You having nice dreams? You having nice dreams? I think you tidied up. I see you tidied up your bed. And your name is Casper. Good morning to you. He wants to say, leave me alone, I need to go back to sleep. So, I then have little pies, tiny little pies, which are creamy chicken in my freezer. Little pies I'm going to prepare, which is an unusual breakfast, but I have to finish the spinach before I cook it with curly kale for something else. Closing my video.